Imagine a perfectly normal, slightly boring Tuesday. You're sitting in your kitchen, drinking a cup of tea. It's just an ordinary morning. Suddenly, a tiny glowing dragon flies straight through the open window and lands right next to your teacup. Now, how do you react? You don't scream, you don't call the news. You just casually swat it away like a common housefly, take another sip of tea, and go back to your day. That exact reaction completely defines magical realism. It's a type of story where completely impossible, magical things happen in our normal world, and everyone accepts them as a natural part of life. In these stories, magic is treated with total indifference. It is simply another piece of the furniture, no more surprising than a table or a chair. The term magical realism originated in the 1920s. An art critic named Franz first used it to describe a style of painting that was incredibly realistic, yet felt strange and dreamlike. Eventually, this style moved into literature. It became a global phenomenon through the work of Latin American writers. The most important figure to cite in your studies is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He wrote the foundational works that defined the genre for modern readers. Including the names Franz and Gabriel Garcia Marquez in a written response shows an evaluator that you understand the genre's history and its roots in both art and literature. It is easy to confuse magical realism with regular fantasy or old folktales, as all three involve elements of the impossible. To distinguish them for your exam, we can look at where the story happens and how the magic functions. In the first column, fantasy, magic occurs in invented worlds like Hogwarts. These stories use magic to help heroes achieve greatness or overcome extraordinary odds. The second column, folktales, uses magic to illustrate a specific moral lesson. These stories are built to show the reader the difference between right and wrong. In the third column, magical realism, the magic happens in a real, everyday world. Here, the impossible events are used to highlight social issues or human flaws. While fantasy provides a way to escape reality, magical realism uses the supernatural to force us to look more closely at the world we already live in. This matter-of-fact approach to magic appears consistently across the three stories in the MEG-15 syllabus. In The Nose, a man discovers his nose has left his face and is now walking around town dressed in a high-ranking uniform. The man's primary concern is not the miracle of the moving nose, but the loss of his social status. This story uses a magical event to reveal how much people value appearances over reality. In A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings, an actual angel crashes into a muddy yard during a heavy storm. The characters respond by locking the angel in a chicken coop and charging money for people to see him. This supernatural arrival serves to show the greed and cruelty of the townspeople. Finally, the palm wine Drinkard follows a man as he journeys into the land of the dead to find his favorite tapster. The narrator describes terrifying ghosts and spirits as if they were ordinary physical facts, blending traditional African folklore into the concrete details of daily life. In each of these texts, the magic is a specific tool. It allows the author to show us something ugly or absurd about human nature that might be harder to see in a purely realistic story. You can analyze the stories in your syllabus more effectively by looking for 5 specific features that appear in almost all magical realist literature. This 5-point framework provides a clear way to prove that a text belongs to this genre. First, look for a realistic setting. The world of the story should be recognizable and grounded in everyday reality. Second, magic and reality must exist together. Characters should interact with the supernatural as if it were completely normal. Third, check the tone of the narrator. They should describe magical events plainly, without using words that suggest surprise or shock. Fourth, observe if the story incorporates local myths or cultural folklore as a natural part of the character's world. Fifth, identify the social criticism. The impossible events should highlight a real-world problem, like greed, vanity, or inequality. By organizing your thoughts around these 5 points, you can provide the specific evidence required for a thorough literary analysis of any story in your course. Simply put, magical realism introduces a small amount of the impossible into our normal world. This shift makes the familiar world look strange enough that we finally notice its underlying problems. Good luck with your MEG-16 studies. Use these features to guide your reading, and you will be well prepared for your exams.